This is, I think, such a spectacular, overwhelmingly racist line of attack. It is so clear what this is. It's such an overtly racist thing to say about a Muslim candidate that any sort of comparison to any other marginalized population that I would invoke, even by pure analog, would make me look like I'm an unrelentless racist. Live, Cuomo talking about you with Eric Adams right now.
Around with Hasan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. I did
cannot
a press conference with Wendy and Sal to Turkey.
I can't stress this enough. How insincere and unserious of a campaign this has been. It almost feels like he hates me more than Zohran at this point.
Have 9/11 illness. 3,000 died on 9/11. You want to say America deserves
what the is happening?
9/11. You insult all the families of all the people. You insult all the families of all the victims of 9/11, of all the victims of 9/11 illness. It is an insult to all New Yorkers. I did a press conference weeks ago and asked him.
I like that he's trying to mask the very obviously racialized attacks, calling Zohran a jihadist and shit by being like, no, I was just saying he's gonna do 9/11 because he loves Hassan, who is another Muslim guy who loves 9/11, I think.
I'm not gonna be yelling all over the place at me. We're gonna do it one at a time, and I'm only doing a few more, and I'm going. I said what I had to say.
Sir, for your division, you have seen some lost ground among the Hispanic community. Do you think this alliance will help? The mayor is very popular among the Hispanic community, so are you. But Mr. Mamdani has gained some ground within the Hispanic community. How do you think this alliance will help?
I think, look, New Yorkers just need to hear the truth and the facts, you know. They've been mesmerized by TikTok videos and tweets and productions. Let them know the facts. And when they know the facts, we're going to get the Latino vote, we're going to get the black vote, we're going to get the white vote, we're going to get every New Yorker who's a real New Yorker.
Mr. Cuomo, did you offer Mayor Adams anything in return for
Don't even answer
love?
that, Carrie. That's a carrot.
Love.
Ignore him. Ignore him.
I cannot believe Mayor Adams' fall from grace chatters. He went from saying all my haters will be waiters at my table of success to becoming a waiter at Andrew Cuomo's table of misery. How did this happen to my goat? How could this have happened to my goat? This was his response to being asked about this, by the way. Yeah, Cuomo's talking about what he says in Mamdani's inexperience. Rosenberg suggests Mamdani would cheer another 9/11. Cuomo says deadpan, ha, then adds, that's another problem. Cuomo then continues talking about Mamdani's ability to handle a crisis. And then, in the most disingenuous way possible, he just keeps going, no, you don't understand. It's because he actually went on a podcast with Hasanabi Piker, one of the architects of 9/11. Both myself and Zohran Mamdani were 8 years old when 9/11 happened, okay? I was in Turkey. Zohran was in New York. We were both 8. Being all buddy-buddy with Adams and shitting on the voters is definitely going to get him all the votes, sure, buddy. It's just like such an obvious disingenuous line of attack. Asked about the exchange about 9/11 and Sid Rosenberg this morning, Cuomo says, I didn't make that comment, and then pivots to Hasan Piker and Mamdani. Like, you can go on the conservative radio talk show host Sid Rosenberg show to accuse the next mayor, potentially the first Muslim mayor of New York, as wanting 9/11 to happen, and that's not an indictment, okay? And then when asked why you said that, you could turn around and be like, well, how about Hasan Piker, who was talking about the concept of blowback in 2019 that I'm cynically going to use over and over again? It's just so demented how the asymmetry here is so demented. This is one of the other reasons why I always tell liberals and specifically leftists online to wake the fuck up and smell the goddamn roses. Okay? All of this stuff is disingenuous. You need to look at what a person actually represents without getting duped so easily by dumb who don't give a shit about you, your worldview, or are only cynically making it seem as though they're on your side. So many Nazis online nowadays know how easily tricked leftists are, know how easily duped leftists are, know how easily duped liberals are, or let's just say were, okay? So they use that as a tool of division. And Andrew Cuomo is demonstrating it through and through. Do you understand? I don't think I played that formative of a role in the New York mayoral primaries. Okay? I don't think I played that formative of a role. I'm sure like there was, it wasn't bad that we were early in our support for Zohran Mamdani in this community. But the very fact that Andrew Cuomo is singling me out as though I'm like some kingmaker is ridiculous. And the only reason why he's doing that is because he has an extremely online group of people in his campaign. Yeah, only look at the title. This is the guy whose show he went on. New York radio host, liberal Jews are killing us. This is Sid Rosenberg, okay? This is the show that Andrew Cuomo went on. This person has a infinitely worse reputation right now and infinitely worse politics right now. What the fuck are we talking about? I use this as an example. When I was talking about like Andrew Cuomo going on the Impulsive podcast. Like, are we really doing guilt by association? When you are so desperate for a crumb of clout that you went on Logan Paul's podcast? Get the fuck out of here. Who's the shiny guy on the right? That's Sid. That is Sid Rosenberg, the conservative podcaster radio show host. Do you think this is actually changing anyone's mind on voting for Zohran? No, it's not. That's why it's so stupid. Okay? That's why it's so stupid. Because the greatest way to just sever this is for like it's such a stupid line of attack. It's such an idiotic line of attack. And all it is doing is it's not convincing anybody. No one is going, oh my God, I was really going to vote for fast and free buses. But it turns out Zohran went and did a Twitch stream with a person who in 2019 said America deserved 9/11 when talking about American foreign policy and the concept of blowback, a concept that there is academic consensus around. Well, this has really made me reconsider my stances. Like, that's not a real thing. Okay? That's not a real thing at all. At most, and even then, the success of this line of attack is not going to, like, at most it would try to tarnish my credibility or my reputation. Okay, and that would only work for like a brief period. That wouldn't have like a long-standing impact. You know, this is unironically like, oh, I can't believe Zohran would go on Joe Rogan, but this time cynically being pressed by Andrew Cuomo and his failure of a candidacy, his failure of a campaign. In any case, it's just not. This is not like this is not a significant problem for the Zohran campaign at all. It's not even a significant problem for someone like myself. It's just at most going to do reputational damage to me for like a week, and then people that hate me are going to use this as an opportunity to be like, oh, everybody hates you, law, and then what? Okay, a week later, the Trump administration is going to continue doing its fascism, and people are going to realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe we were wrong about this dude. This has been my entire career. People get whipped up in a frenzy over nonsensical shit, whether it's because I bought a house, or whether it's because I leased a Porsche, or whatever the or because they've imagined that I'm like abusing my dog by, because she sleeps behind me for extended periods of time. I can't believe dogs sleep in the same cot. It's just people make up their minds And then they realize maybe they were duped. It is what it is. The reality of the matter is the reason why they hate that Zohran and I linked up is not because of my 2019 comments about 9/11. It's because I've been a proud, loud Israel advocate for the past 10 years, and it's been especially important for the past 2. That's it. That's it. It's the majority position, and these guys can't contend with it, so they have to angle different kinds of attacks without saying that it's because he's saying Israel. Back in the day, for the past 2 years, they kept repeating, oh, well, this guy's anti-Semitic. He says Israel. This guy's anti-Semitic. This guy's anti-Semitic. And it didn't work. And it stopped working. So now they have to find other shit to be like, well, we'll punish you for other reasons. We'll try to punish you for other reasons. So you shut the up. So others that are also on that same wavelength see what you go through, and they think twice before saying some shit like that. It's an insult to New Yorkers, Cuomo says, pointing to Mamdani's appearance with podcaster Hasan Piker, who has been criticized for statements about Israel. He is asked about Mamdani's accusation that his attacks are Islamophobic. That's it. So this is not me speaking specifically to the right, okay? This is not me specifically speaking to the right. This is me specifically speaking to leftists and sometimes, and in many instances, liberals that fall mercy to the cynical framing adopted by right-wing reactionary figures. Right-wing reactionaries can dupe you so easily. Make up your own mind. Think about why this person, under different circumstances, would never bring up a point like this. Think about how silly it would look if the roles were reversed. If people were talking about how, like, oh, did you go on a podcast with Sid Rosenberg? Like, no one gives a shit, right? That's it. I beg leftists and liberals to exercise a little bit more scrutiny instead of immediately jumping on the piling, on the witch hunt, on the pile drives that are oftentimes being directed by reactionary forces. Don't be stupid. Don't be a sucker. Here's Andrew Cuomo's response to his interview this morning with Zohran Mamdani and others have condemned as Islamophobic. He doesn't say much, pivots criticism to Hasan Piker's comments, which Mamdani has condemned. This shit can't work. We have to move past this era of politics, man. Yeah, it's just like, it's so stupid, but unfortunately, sometimes people do get due for it. It's not going to work in this race, okay? It's not going to work in this race, but it is a far larger problem that must be addressed at some point, okay? Because if liberals and leftists get tuned up with the outrage manufacturing machine and demand infallibility from their candidates or their advocates or their allies, and assume that everyone is morally pure, that you're not going to have disagreements sometimes with the people that you are aligned with. If you cannot comprehend that this is a normal human component, is a normal part of solidarity, is a normal part of how you build a mass movement, people of all different backgrounds, people of all different worldviews and experiences, you are not going to win anything, and you are constantly going to be wondering, why are there no other big leftist content creators out there? Why are there no perfect advocates out there? I don't understand. There is no such thing as a perfect advocate. Okay? That doesn't exist. There are people who just haven't had the same level of scrutiny that has been deployed to those at the top. That's it. Okay? And especially given the confines of this format that I exist in, you can do this all the time. Look no further than the woe is me. No, this is not about me, man. This is not. I think you are cynically trying to make it seem like I'm trying to talk about myself or how much of a victim I am. I'm not a victim. I am unimaginably and unfathomably privileged. Okay? 1,000,000%. I have many different forms of privilege that allow me to at least eat it all the time. Okay? There are plenty of others who don't have that. Okay? There are plenty of others who don't have that privilege. I like the news coverage. Well, this is also analysis. This is analysis that is pertinent to one of the biggest weaknesses that liberal and left-wing movements have. Okay? It's majorly consequential. It has nothing to do with someone like myself. I'm just simply another example. You talk about yourself a lot. Well, one, I'm a Twitch streamer. Of course, I'm going to pull from my own personal experiences. That's number one. And number two, I didn't ask to be consistently weaponized in this New York mayoral race by a charlatan who wants to mask his Islamophobic and racist ass takes by constantly going, well, they deserve it because he's Muslim. They deserve it because he's Muslim, and he went on a podcast with another Muslim guy who was talking about blowback that I'm going to insincerely, consistently talk about in 2019. You know? As long as the left maintains this, like, impossible standard for themselves that no human being, themselves included, have not actually matched, okay? We're just not going to ever win anything. Anyway, I wasn't talking about Platinum when I was talking about this shit, but here is, Trump's live talking about the cartel announcement. We'll talk about that too.
That was not a bad week.
Yeah. Kathy Hochul is luckily attacking the Cuomo campaign, being like unrestricted Islam, doing unrestricted Islamophobia. He's buddies with the guy who said America deserved 9/11, also with the unindicted co-conspirator to the World Trade Center bombing. Again, I love that the response to Islamophobia is just more Islamophobia. Okay? The response to Islamophobia, like the response to the bigotry represented by Andrew Cuomo, is just bigoted people turning around and being more bigoted. Oh, excuse me. I'll have you know it's actually perfectly valid to say he wants to do global jihad and he loves 9/11. After all, he's with a prominent progressive Twitch streamer here who's talking about the concept of blowback in 2019. And he also loves 9/11. Here's another Muslim guy that I also am suspecting of loving 9/11. It's ridiculous. Maybe it's because I with you, but is it worse than post 9/11? I didn't live in America in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, so I can't speak on that. But this is the, like, I came to the United States of America when I was 18 in 2009, okay? And I don't know how bad it was for everyday Muslims in like 2001, 2002. I suspect it was worse. But from 2009 and onward, this has been the worst Islamophobia has gotten. Okay? I can't speak for pre-2009. I suspect it was very bad the closer you get to 9/11. But since 2009, I can tell you, yes, Islamophobia has gotten worse in the United States of America in the last 2 years. I wouldn't say that it's as bad as it was in 2001, though. I mean, come on. Americans broadly decided no more need for civil liberties after 2001. That's how horny they were to punish every Muslim. And for the record, before people say, this is not racism, because I brought this up. I talked about how Islamophobia is a different version of racism because it's racialized. And people's immediate response, like we're all the way back in like 2016 or something, where people are like, excuse me, Islamophobia means a fear of Islam. I don't fear Islam. I just want to kill them. And actually, it's perfectly valid to fear Islam. Also, how can you say this is racism? Because obviously it's not racism at all. It's just a religion. And it's like, okay, it is racialized. That's precisely the reason why the first victim after 9/11 of an Islamophobic hate crime was not a Muslim man, but a man wearing a turban. He was Sikh. So how can you tell me it's not racialized? What do you mean? It's so stupid. Trump starting another weekend war. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, look, we're gonna get back to that in a second. I do want to talk about this because I haven't seen a lot of motion from the Democrats like coming after this, like retaliating against Andrew Cuomo, who is behaving in an incredibly racist manner right now. Okay, both last night and this past week, he's gone extra hard. Okay, extra hard, including bringing my name up, as we saw in the press conference earlier this morning, where he's like, "Oh, you don't get it. I'm not being bigoted. I'm not being racist. I'm actually, I actually just think Hassan, another Muslim progressive guy, wants 9/11 to happen." That's what it was. But all of this, every single person running for mayor and the current mayor have now talked about you on the campaign trail. I know. Do you think this will help his numbers or not? No, it won't. It obviously will not. It's still annoying though. It's still annoying. It's still incredibly annoying. And also, most likely, it's dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Okay? It's dangerous for the Muslims living in New York. It's dangerous for Muslims living all around the Western world. That's how it works. It's the same principle behind racism against black people. It's not directed just at that one singular black person. It's directed at all black people. That's the whole point of bigotry. That's the whole point of racism. You are dehumanizing by elevating the stereotypes of certain people. To continue feeling okay about watching you, I need to know why you ban people for talking about certain world issues when they're just asking why you don't talk more on the issues. Overall, your output is good, but I think this is worrisome. Here, this is a perfect example of why we usually just ban and move on. Because if I sometimes take the time to answer over and over again, you're not the only person that actually has these concerns or has these issues, right? Like there are a million different things happening all the time. There's so much awfulness happening all around the world and even in the United States of America, right? And a lot of people have their own personal thing that they want me to cover. And sometimes we just quickly move through it by just clicking and in an effort not to derail, as it is happening right now, because I'm taking the time out to respond to you. And in other instances, when I don't do that, when there's 32,000 people in here, 32,000 people who want have very different needs from this broadcast. And I do respond over and over again, especially when some people are cynically and some people are sincerely demanding that I cover something. After a certain point, I lose my cool and I respond in a certain way. And it comes across as short and people get very mad at the way that it came across. And then there are think pieces, well, not think pieces, but like TikToks that extensively cover the secret hidden white supremacist attitudes that I have. And this is the reason why we just simply go click and move on instead of having to address it all the time. It has gotten better throughout the years. No, the only thing that's gotten better is that I usually don't respond to it. Because notice how I was talking about like the dangers of bigotry, not just bigotry against Muslims as a whole, but bigotry against black people and how white supremacy works. And you came in and you asked me about like how sometimes I get derailed. Why won't you let people derail you? Why do you like ban them, right? And then I gave you the example. I gave you the response. Thanks for clarifying. No problem. Of course, none of the people that get their licks in will ever see this, so it doesn't really matter. It will not go viral. Because you can kind of do that with everything. I think it's possible to not be prejudiced while still using language that might reinforce prejudice, such as your intro that literally calls someone a twink. I don't think you're homophobic. What is homophobic language? Yes, this is true. Context and nuance is obviously important in the intention when we're talking about language. I've never been one to sanitize the way I speak about certain things. I just let my overall perspective speak for itself and my overall advocacy speak for itself. I'm never going to be able to perfectly sanitize my language in a way that suits every single person. And that's just never going to be able to happen. And that's not even because like, oh, I don't want to change. I don't want to be better. That's not what I'm saying at all. The reason why I'm saying that is because it's virtually impossible for me to do so in a very dynamic environment where there's a stadium full of people that are constantly sending shit my way, sending concerns my way, having back and forth discourse on topics that are obviously very sensitive. And therefore, there's always going to be, in this medium especially, there's always going to be moments that can come across as up. You just have to make up your own mind on whether or not you think I have unrestrained homophobia in my heart. And I'm just like, you have no gay friends. Oh, you're saying twink is offensive? No, he's not even saying twink is offensive. He's just saying twink can be perceived in an offensive manner, which is not wrong. But yeah, that's true. Some people do basically substitute it as like the F slur, right? Which is true. I understand that. But again, it's just not something that is possible for me to tamper with all the time, especially because it's just, I am who I am. And there are always going to be moments in this medium that I exist in that many people are not very familiar with, but they only see the clips, where, of course, there's going to be angry moments and things of that nature. And yeah, it is what it is. Also, the other side of the story, of course, is the unrealistic demands and the puritanical attitude demonstrated by broader flanks of the left. The notion that like we cannot be charitable to those who are our allies or those who have demonstrated a long-standing commitment to uplifting all voices. It's impossible. 10 seconds in the least charitable framing is actually everything that I needed to know about you. It corresponds to my own personal biases about you. It is what it is. If that's your attitude, if that's the type of attitude that you have, then one, it's going to be very difficult to build any sort of broad coalition. And two, that's just not how human beings are in general. That's not how it works. This isn't to say that this isn't to say that you should just like let everything slide. That's not what I'm saying at all. But especially if you're on the left, okay? Especially if you're on the left, this is not about me, okay? This is about you. If you're on the left and you want to be a communicator for the left, you have to recognize that one day that level of scrutiny will come for you as well. That level of that puritanical approach will also tamper with your objectives as well. It's inevitable. It's always going to happen. Haters claim you had facial enhancement surgery. Wait, really? That's nice. That's cool. So what metrics do you personally weigh when deciding who you let in the coalition and who isn't? Like, how do you personally draw the line? I'm actually curious. In terms of broad coalition building, I look to not what a person has done in their past, but who they are now and what they represent now, what the values that they have are now. And I will always demonstrate charitability, maybe even to a fault. A lot of people actually get mad at me for that. And because of that charitability, I've been burned quite a bit by people who I've perceived as allies or people who I've perceived as good people overall. But I haven't stopped my own. I haven't stopped being charitable to people as long as they don't do something that is like totally and utterly irredeemable, or it makes me call into question what their worldview looks like. I'm always going to assume that I can change their minds, or lead them on a better path, guide them towards a better path that they also think is better for everyone. Anyway, getting back to this though, Zohran Mamdani was discussed. Okay. Andrew Cuomo, this is a Politico article that also mentions me as well, but Cuomo suggests Mamdani would cheer a future terror attack. This is, I think, such a spectacular, overwhelmingly racist line of attack. It is so clear what this is. Now, he went on Sid Rosenberg's radio show, and Sid Rosenberg is a very conservative Jewish radio show host, and they had a back and forth on this radio show where they were talking about Zohran Mamdani and 9/11. Here's what took place.
There's a crisis. And people's lives are at stake. God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?
Hey, I could. He'd be cheering.
Well, it's another problem. But can you imagine that?
No.
I mean,
Listen.
If Mamdani was in the seat on 9/11, what would have happened in the seat?
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Just straight up saying, like, he'd be cheering on the 9/11 attack if he was the mayor, if another 9/11 was happening. I mean, this is the most transparent version. This is the most transparent version of racism. Like, there is no, it's such an overtly racist thing to say about a Muslim candidate that any sort of comparison to any other marginalized population that I would invoke would, even by pure analog, would make me look like I'm an unrelentless racist, which is why I'm not going to do that, right? But it's like you can figure out exactly what the equivalent would look like if they were talking about a black person, okay, and the white supremacist stereotypes in regards to a black person, or if they were talking about a Jewish person and the anti-Semitic stereotypes that surround Jewish people, even including 9/11, ironically enough, because there are plenty of people who think Israel and Jews were responsible for 9/11. And if Zohran Mamdani was a Jewish candidate and Andrew Cuomo, an Italian man, went on a right-wing broadcaster show and turned around and said, like, well, can you imagine a Jew being in charge of New York when 9/11 was happening? I mean, he would just cheer it on. He would do it again. He would tell all of his friends to leave the towers before the planes fell, like before the planes hit it. Like, that would be a career ender, right? That would be a career ender. And the anti-Semitic conspiracy of the Jewish connection on 9/11 is a lesser known one as opposed to the direct Islamophobic conspiracies, which is why I don't feel as scared to even bring it up, as opposed to something about black people or something more nefarious about Jewish people that is broadly known, like a more nefarious stereotype. Okay, I'm not going to do it. Proceed to do it. No, I even explained why I don't feel as worried bringing up that as a counterexample. As opposed to something else, right? It's something else would look like blood libel. Anyway, but because, and every person of marginalized background in this community and across the board knows exactly what this is, what I'm about to explain. Sometimes dealing with bigotry of this sort, if you're a woman, if you're trans, if you're black, if you're brown, is doubly because not only do you have to make the mental calculation of whether or not you have the time or the energy to expend to address the racism, you also have to literally think, well, what if the rest of the audience that's listening to what this asshole has to say agrees with him? That is one of the most nefarious aspects of having to consistently combat with bigotry of every sort. Because let's say you're a black person and the person in front of you said something objectively white supremacist, right? As a black person in that moment, you go through the process of, do I check this guy? Do I explain to him that he's being racist? Is he even going to be receptive to me checking him? Or is there going to be an even more aggressive reaction as a consequence of me checking him? And worst of all of the people around us that are hearing this conversation, will they actually side with me? Are they equipped with the knowledge of what white supremacist dog whistles look like? Or are they actually going to side with him and assume that I'm an angry black man who's just complaining for no reason? Okay? It is doubly socially isolating to have to go through that mental calculation every step of the day, every day throughout the week. It's really fucked up, okay? And it's one that women have experienced in terms of dealing with misogyny. It's one that black people have experienced in terms of dealing with white supremacy. It's one that brown people have experienced in terms of dealing with bigotry. And it's one that trans people experience as well. This is a part of understanding intersectionality, okay? This is unfortunately how it works. And cynical actors such as Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams will lean into that. They will lean into broad majorities finding Islamophobia to be totally permissible. And I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to check that. I don't know. And that's precisely the reason why a lot of people just kind of let it slide. A lot of Muslims let it slide. A lot of black people let it slide. A lot of women let it slide. Because after a while, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't do anything. And in that process, people become way more in that process, the victims of these sorts of bigotries become more aggressive. Okay? They have a hair trigger. It's from that exhaustion of constantly trying to prove your humanity to others who just don't want to fucking see it, who don't want to hear it. And the knowledge that even people that you have perceived as your allies up until that very moment could turn on a dime and also see you in the exact same way that this white supremacist sees you is a terrifying prospect. So a lot of people just like refuse to even address it out of fears that they're going to see someone that they have admired or liked up until that moment say something that caused them to recalculate. Like, have you seen me as this being this entire time? As someone, finally a good take. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever had this take. Guy who's been called a terrorist by his former counterparts and virtually 95% of the sphere that I'm in the circles that I'm in for the better half of the last 2 years doesn't understand what it looks like when he only sees silence from all of the other contemporaries and counterparts. He doesn't understand it at all. I've talked about this quite a bit. Of course. Always woe is me, stop. This is unironically exactly what I was talking about. Because every single person that is marginalized in some fashion in this chat knows exactly what this dude is doing right now. Where you address it, and what happens? You address it, and people go, ugh, God, stop being a complainer. Can't even have a brief moment. This is partially the reason why there are places that are ordained as safe spaces. This is not one of them, obviously, but this is it. This is why people are like, oh, why can't we just have a safe space for ourselves? And then people find that to be an act of violence as well. Yeah, just pulling the race card. Okay? Just take something on the chin for once. You do this all the time, though, as an individual from your position. Just take it on the chin for once. Well, I'm talking about a broader context of what people who experience some form of marginalization experience. So I'm glad that you also proved the example of what I was talking about. Even if you briefly mention it, as opposed to just taking it on the chin, as you do 1,000 times a day, there is always going to be a chirper. Okay? You see what I mean? This was the example that I'm sure everyone is aware of. But thank you, chatter. In any case, that was my point. That's why many people just take it on the chin. But there is a downside to that as well. There's a downside to constantly taking it on the chin, because then you have to do this other calculation where you're like, okay, if I take it on the chin all the time, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? I only became a follower so I can say this. Hasan is just Brian Griffin. Guy who only can contextualize things that he's seeing through cartoons. Please, I really hope that you're 14 years old and you're just TikTok brained. Because if you're 35 years old and you're still contextualizing things in the real world from the framework of you're just like Brian Griffin from Family Guy, you're not going to make it, big dog. Anyway. Muslim. Islamophobia is bad. Islamophobe. You're a terrorist. You know what's worse than Islamophobia? Mehdi Hassan says the levels of Islamophobia in this country are off the charts right now. When talking about Larry Elder's post saying Zohran is going to do 9/11, but a communist 9/11 on New York. And God Saad, #1 dick rider, major Islamophobic mouthpiece, says, you know what's worse than Islamophobia? The nearly 3,000 innocent people who died on 9/11 at the hands of an Islamic terrorist, or the 48,000 Islamic terror attacks in the nearly 70 countries since 9/11 alone. People are waking up. I talked about this yesterday. But it bears repeating now. I think there is a deliberate effort by Zionist advocacy organizations that have now come to the recognition that Israel's PR is in the gutter for good reasons, and therefore they can't really defend Israel. So the next best thing that they could potentially do is shit on Muslims and try to turn Israel-Palestine into a Jews versus Muslims, or even better yet, Western civilization versus Muslims style conflict. There are obvious initiatives of this sort. That's why Tommy Robinson, a famous white supremacist fascist from England, flew out to Israel recently and tries to maintain the attention of the right and the reactionary movement on all of Islam's flaws and failures, and really beefing up Islamophobia, because they realize that even the right doesn't f with Israel any longer. And once Israel loses the right, they got nothing left. But yeah, I showed you the Zohran Mamdani statement, like the statement made about Zohran Mamdani. And here is Zohran's response to it.
Before you sat down here, on Sid Rosenberg's radio show, your opponent Andrew Cuomo said this, quote, God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat, end quote. Rosenberg responded by saying he'd be cheering. Andrew Cuomo said, quote, that's another problem. I want to get your reaction.
This is disgusting. This is Andrew Cuomo's final moments in public life, and he's choosing to spend them making racist attacks on the person who would be the first Muslim to lead this city. And frankly, it's not about me. It's about the fact that there are more than 1 million Muslims who live in New York City. And to have our faith be smeared and slandered.
For the record, this is part of the reason why he can't just like outright say, oh, Hassan sucks, it's not me, when slam with the 9/11 shit, because there are very few victories there for him. Okay, that's the maximalist position, but he knows where that resentment is coming from. He knows that this is cynical framing, which is why I was a little upset initially with his disavowal of the globalize the intifada narratives. He made that calculation in the moment that it was not worthy of having to defend over and over again, and he just didn't want to have to be inundated with this line of attack. So he thought he could just simply say, oh, well, you know, the globalized intifada thing, I don't say it, you know, I disavow it, blah, blah, blah. It seems like a lot, I've done some learning. It seems like a lot of people, you know, have a different approach to what it is, right? But it didn't do anything. It didn't stop. And just like his disavowal or condemnation of me, if he were to do that, would not stop the Islamophobic line of attacks. You have to, at a certain point, address the exact root cause of why this cynical approach is happening. And he's doing that right now. He's doing that right at this very moment, where he says it is the dying last gasp of a desperate candidate that is endorsing full-throated Islamophobic attacks against his Muslim opponent. And the very fact that Democrats are not all incredibly angry at Andrew Cuomo for, one, refusing to drop out of the race, and two, allowing him to basically exist within the Democrat infrastructure while doing these sorts of bigoted lines of attack, not just against Muslims either, but against all different marginalized backgrounds, as we saw in last night's AI attack ad that he crafted, that they quickly posted and deleted. The very fact that a person who is claiming to be a true Democrat, an institutional Democrat on this race, is hitting maximalist, Islamophobic, and racist attacks against the actual Democrat on the ticket is insane. Where are all the vote blue no matter who liberals who claim that Bernie Sanders did not do enough? Even though Bernie Sanders not only endorsed Hillary Clinton, but actually went all around the country at the behest of Hillary Clinton and did the same for Joe Biden as well. I think the broader liberal attitude towards candidates that they previously thought were unelectable or radical is changing. Okay? There is a much healthier attitude from the liberal base towards the likes of Zohran Mamdani and towards the likes of Graham Plattner as well. We shall see how that translates to the Michigan Senate run of Abdul El Sayed. Okay? It seems to me like voters, liberal voters in general, are lockstep with the left flank of the party, where they have now finally realized that actually it is a better electability argument if you are engaging in left populist policy making. Okay? Same shit for how long they stood up for Haitians. This included the media who did the bare minimum in terms of advocating. I know. I mean, that was unimaginable. Like, I could not believe it. You know, you were here. I could not understand how an election campaign got away with straight up saying that black people were eating cats and dogs, man. It was so insane. There hasn't been polling after the skull shit stopped baking. Wait, what? There hasn't been wide sweeping, broad condemnation over even the most irredeemable thing in the eyes of the liberals, which is having a Nazi tattoo. Okay? That's all I'm stating. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes. All I'm saying is I'm noticing a lack of response from these kinds of severe escalations from the right. There's a lack of response on the left against severely escalating, severely tuned up, racialized rhetoric. So much so that even the likes of Dinesh D'Souza has recognized it. The anti-Indian sentiment that is so perverse and unchecked and unrestrained. So much so that J.D. Vance, whose children are Indian, J.D. Vance, whose wife is Indian, has defended the anti-Indian sentiment of big balls and all the Doge kids and whatnot. And when the Republicans also expand that permission structure of bigotry, what do you think is going to happen? When people have no social cohesion, when people have no social checking around bigotry that is not only exhibited, but just like openly posterized bigotry, a lot of those people are going to feel infinitely more comfortable doing it.
By someone who at one point was considered a leader in the Democratic Party, showcases the fact that bigotry and racism is not exclusively a Republican problem. It is also a problem within our own party. And it is time that we turn the page on Andrew Cuomo and those that would tolerate this kind of rhetoric from him as well.
Yeah, I can hear the passion and emotion in your voice. It's personal for you.
It is. I mean, it just... To describe myself and describe Muslims in this manner, it begs the question of why this kind of rhetoric is acceptable when we're speaking about Muslim New Yorkers. Because all Muslim New Yorkers want is to feel a sense of equality and respect that every New Yorker deserves. And even that is being denied by the former governor.
Don't even try it. Don't even try to get on my lap right now. Be careful. There's a bear behind you. I know. It's terrifying. Yeah. This is an incredibly comprehensive article. Okay, the Graham Plattner thing. I know. You want me to watch the Graham Plattner article. We're not going to do that right now. With a dire picture of Mamdani mayoralty, Cuomo plays to voters' fears. What a spectacular way to frame unrestrained and unrestricted racism, okay? Andrew Cuomo is escalating his warnings that mayhem would follow a victory by Zohran Mamdani, even posting an AI-generated video that depicts his supporters as criminals. On Thursday, he urged Sid Rosenberg to imagine Mamdani in that seat if there's another September 11. Yeah, I could. He'd be cheering, he said. Cuomo left. That's another problem. It's just a little bit of, playing into the fears of the voters. I'm willing to bet that if you were to ask voters what they fear more, the actual Islamophobia or Muslims in general, I would suspect the unrestrained Islamophobia would be more like the unrestrained bigotry, not just against Muslims, but against all marginalized populations, all marginalized backgrounds would probably be more of a concern for New York City voters, I think. And obviously that is the case. And that is precisely the reason why Zohran is 20 plus points on Andrew Cuomo from the WAPO. But Hassan defense doesn't make sense. Cuomo spokesman Rich Azzo Party defended Cuomo's remarks, saying the governor was referring to Mamdani's refusal to denounce left-wing commentator Hasan Piker, who once said America deserved 9/11. Cuomo did not mention Piker in that part of his conversation with Rosenberg, and Mamdani has said Piker's comments on 9/11 were objectionable and reprehensible. Exactly. He thinks that's a good line of attack, except I am not a known entity. Okay? He thinks, oh, you guys are saying that me associating Zohran with cheering on 9/11 is racist. But actually, the reason why I was making that inference is because here's another progressive Muslim commentator that I also am associating with cheering on 9/11. A Twitch streamer. Yeah, and it's also additionally stupid because I'm willing to bet I'm probably, for amongst people who know who I am versus know who Cuomo is, okay, because not many people know who I am, but amongst people who know who I am in New York, I'm probably a more popular figure than Andrew Cuomo is. Like, it's so dumb. You just now said you're a Muslim. I'm so happy right now. Yes, obviously these people, when they make those associations, are really leaning into the Hasan Piker aspect of it. No one would actually call into question if Zohran went on Bill Maher's TV show. No one would be like, well, remember when Bill Maher literally said the 9/11 attackers were brave 2 weeks after 9/11 and then said, you know what's not brave? Lobbing Tomahawk missiles from thousands of miles away. That's not brave. You know who is brave? Flying into those towers. That's what Bill Maher said. Do you think this kind of association would be taking place with Zohran Mamdani and Bill Maher if Zohran Mamdani went on Bill Maher's show? No. I wonder why. Yeah. And when asked to, when called into question his remarks about Zohran Mamdani on the Sid Rosenberg show, this is what he retaliated with.
It was
just like last night, when he was asked about directly addressing his victims, specifically the one that was in the room, he turned around and said, oh, why don't you do BDS on Uganda?
a radio show that I was on. I was not the co-host of the radio.
Yeah. A guy who was trying to present himself as like the Democrat Party's alternative, even though he lost the primaries, can easily go on a right-wing show and be unrestrained and racist while simultaneously turning around and being like, but this progressive guy who works with the Democrats, okay, me, that association is unacceptable. It's ridiculous.
The host said whatever the host said. All right, that's the host. Go talk to the host.
Okay, the host said whatever the host said. What do you mean? This entire campaign, you've been like, oh, well, what about what Hasan Piker said in 2019? I didn't bring up 9/11 to Zohran, and Zohran was like, yeah, it's awesome. Let's do another one in our conversation. In your situation, you did that this morning. Asshole.
About that. I said about 9/11.
Yes, I'm the host in this equivalent thing. Exactly. Why is that host wrong and this one isn't? Well, one, because it's a bastardized quote about American foreign policy, and it was in 2019, dumbass. It wasn't yesterday. The equivalence of this this being a line of attack would be if I went and talked to Zohran Mamdani and we extensively covered 9/11 and we said, oh, America deserved 9/11, and he agreed with me. That would be a major blow to Zohran's campaign. Okay? You're crazy if you think Mamdani actually dislikes you? No, he doesn't. But that's besides the point. I'm not talking about that anyway.
That's another problem, referring to what I have said repeatedly, which is I have a problem with the fact that Zohran pals around with Hasan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. I did a press conference with Wendy and Sal for Churchill. Sal is dying from 9/11 illness. 10,000.
Bro, this is such a nutty thing. The host said it in reply to Cuomo saying, could you imagine Zohran being mayor during a terror attack? So they are giving him an out by not mentioning that? I know. Bro, you made it. And by extension, we made it. Bro, I'm on your side, but stop saying 2019 as if it was 20 years ago or something. Brother, what are you talking about? This is him defending his position on Islamophobia today, this morning. And then in defense of that, he's like, well, 6 years ago, 6 years prior to Zohran meeting Hasanabi, he once famously said, America deserved 9/11 when talking about American foreign policy and the impact called blowback, a concept that has academic consensus. Me and Zohran did not talk about 9/11, brother. What are you talking about? This is unironically the same shit that these guys do all the time where they're like, whoa, I can't believe you went on the Joe Rogan Experience. You know what I mean? Also, what's crazy about it is that Andrew Cuomo's own personal track record is insane in comparison to what he thinks he can attack Zohran over, which is an affiliation with a Twitch streamer whose quote he is unearthing from 6 years ago. Okay? A concept where there is academic consensus on, for the record. Not said in the best possible way, but regardless. One in which there is academic consensus on the concept of blowback. Every moment that is spent relitigating this incident. Yeah, how Politico is reporting. Politico, Piker, who later said his 9/11 comments were inappropriate. Exactly. It's so stupid.
1,000 New Yorkers have 9/11 illness. 3,000 died.
Please stop justifying. Please stop trying to justify why not one but two Muslim dudes are being associated with like a promotion of 9/11. That's what he is doing. He is trying to associate and affiliate Zohran Mamdani in the eyes of the voters with 9/11 because Zohran is Muslim. Okay? He is trying to find a logical through line to do that within the confines of permissibility without directly saying Zohran would love a 9/11 to happen. Except the problem is he did literally say the quiet part out loud this morning. Okay? And now when people are calling into question why he did that, he's like, oh, well, he's friends with Hasan Piker who loves 9/11 and wants more of it to happen.
On 9/11, you want to say America deserved 9/11? You insult all the families of all the people. You insult all the families of all the victims of 9/11, of all the victims of 9/11 illness.
Yeah.
It is
and also, Zohran already condemned the comment itself. So, and then simultaneously said, we should still talk to people who we disagree with, regardless. And this is why the Democrats lose, which is correct. That's why I'm in this weird boat where, like, on the Graham Plattner stuff, there's like plenty of irredeemable shit in his background. But I do appreciate the fact that liberals are not playing around with this anymore. And I do think that liberals in New York are also not playing around with this shit at all when it comes to Zohran either. Okay? Where they're like, yeah, I don't give a Like, what are you talking about? We need to have more of that. We need to have more of that mentality in the base. And we need to have more of that mentality for leftists as well. Okay? My fiance doesn't think you're reprehensible for saying that, understanding the concept you were discussing, and her mom died in the North Tower. This guy's talking out of his ass. Yeah, one unaddressed aspect of this is that I said we deserved it. We did. Except people act as though I am an outsider when they're talking about this. That's the reason why it would never stick on anybody else. And that's the reason why I give examples of how it has not stuck with anyone else.
Insult to all New Yorkers.
You're talking about a guy who has not apologized for annihilating the elderly during COVID, a guy who has not apologized for 13 credible sexual assault allegations, including a state trooper, by the way, including a state trooper. That's why I say Andrew Cuomo, cop rapist. Okay. And he's over here being like, Zohran needs to apologize for 9/11, but he can't say it directly, even though he did actually laugh at it and also inferred that that's what he meant earlier this morning. So he has to turn around and be like, he needs to apologize more. Bullshit.
He did a press conference weeks ago and asked him to denounce that statement, and he refused. He refused. That is an insult to New Yorkers. And yes, I have a problem.
Why did you laugh when he said he would cheer it?
We're going to do this one at a time.
Yeah. Anyway, my friend who's lived in Brooklyn her whole life was saying her dad hears them attack Zohran about you in 9/11, and it makes him like Zohran more because he doesn't want to get canceled for having friends who said dumb shit. I feel like that is more widespread than establishment Dems realize. Yes. I think the broader attitude that the right has demonstrated on their own candidates for actually reprehensible statements, not even like statements that could be defensible to a certain degree if understood within the context, if understood with what like the actual context is, but truly reprehensible statements, the right defense all the time. Okay? It should be possible to critique a candidate's ideas without demonizing the candidate himself. To insinuate that a mayoral candidate would celebrate a second 9/11 is beyond disgusting and disgraceful. We all have a responsibility to lower the temperature and restore a measure of civility to our public discourse. Welcome back, Richie Torres. Unimaginably Richie Torres W, it seems. Stranger things have happened. I agree, but I'm worried about not being able to acknowledge past mistakes. Reducing accountability structures would help. Dude, there is no accountability. No one gives a wake up, okay? It's not real. It's just something that you cynically use towards your interlocutors and your opponents, or cynically use to stalk your least favorite Twitch streamers or some shit. What accountability? Andrew Cuomo's literally a 13-time sexual assaulter. What do you mean accountability? The president is literally most likely a pedophile that was affiliated with the most prolific sex trafficker of minors. And you're like, oh, accountability. Oh, we got to do accountability. What accountability? What are you talking about? It doesn't exist. If only one side demands this like idiotic version of accountability that doesn't even exist in the real world, and the other side is like, haha, accountability. What a bunch of idiots. We're going to put forward drunk rapists and put them in a head of the Department of Defense and then change the word to Department of War, as a matter of fact, and we're going to laser innocent people on boats, and there is no accountability for any of that. What the do you think there is accountability for? It's even a dumber version of this is what the Constitution says. Okay? It's a dumber version of, well, the Constitution says this is illegal. Okay? Because at least there is an existing pre-existing court structure. You might actually have a Trump appointee or a Reagan appointee, a judge that literally goes, you know what, I am going to defend the law for once and actually create a setback. There is no real mechanism of accountability. It doesn't exist. The voters did not choose to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. They elected him. Stop with this nonsense. It's literally just a way for you to get owned all the time. And the right knows this. Okay? The right knows this real well. That's why they cynically weaponize it against the left all the time. Thank God liberals broadly are just like, yeah, we're done with this shit. We're not doing this because obviously the other side is not playing this game at all. So why should we play this game and harm ourselves? Moral infallibility is bullshit, okay? Moral superiority is bullshit. Nobody cares. So in the absence of any sort of like real structure, like the only thing you're doing is basically owning yourself and owning your allies in pursuit of this false moral purity that doesn't exist, especially because when you are easily duped, easily tricked in this way, you can be tricked in even circumstances that doesn't require any sort of real accountability. Yeah. Accountability, by the way. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the accountability from the right. Here's what Steve Bannon had to say about Donald Trump running over and over again.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28. Trump is going to be president 28. And people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is. But there's a plan. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States. And the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through, Zanny, and define all those terms.
But you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it.
If the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all. Trump
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump.
He already laid out the roadmap. They're going to find a fake justification for it. And then they're going to say, let the voters decide if they want this to be. Let the voters decide through principled democracy on whether or not this is constitutionally appropriate or inappropriate. After all, this is the democratic process. And then, due to all of the machinations in play right now, that will not be a real vote. It won't be. There will be overwhelming pressure. They will either fake the numbers or there won't be a real electoral process at all. And then they'll turn around and use that as a justification to say, see, the people decided.
Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no.
I guess that's why it seems to me some kind of tension there.
The only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people, okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started.
He can go by the Turkish route, martial law, referendum, but unlike the Turkish route, he could do a fake referendum. But in any case,
we're showing you video at the bottom.
Let's talk about Bernie's campaign on Fight the Oligarchy While I Go Pee. Hassan Reaction is one of the best ones in the React channel.